Okay guys, welcome back to the channel. So as many of you guys can see behind me, I've got the black E60 back in here after nearly 2 weeks of it being outside, purely because I was doing other cars that didn't actually relate to the channel. So now we've got this back in. Today, we're gonna be flushing and servicing this transmission. Now I am gonna be doing it a completely different way to the way other people do it, and that's purely because this transmission on this car doesn't have any issues whatsoever. And this transmission, that being said, has been serviced all its life because I've got the full history for this car. And I know they replaced certain bits on this car that I actually don't need to replace while I'm doing this. So today we're gonna get onto it and I'm gonna show you how to actually drain the fluid, refill it, and obviously change transmission fluid on the ZF6HP19 gearbox.
Goddamn, get it done, will ya? When the blow up now, everybody's so unusual with it. Shit. But said times in his rhymes, cause his memories. We running through New York, so you know.
Okay guys, so as you can see here, I'm now underneath the black BMW E60. And this right here is the transmission. This is the transmission plan. And this is your fuel plug. Now for your fuel plug, you are gonna need an 8mm Allen key bit. Now, do bear in mind, you are gonna have to whack that on with a hammer, and then you're gonna have to whack it loose with a hammer because it is on very, very tight. That was the easiest way of me getting it off. I literally just whacked an 8mm Allen key in there and then just hit it with the hammer just to release it. For the bottom drain plug, you're gonna need a 10mm Allen key bit to actually release that and drain the fluid from the pan, so then that way you can just start removing all the TOPDON bolts to be able to drop the pan. Now I'm not going to be changing all the mechatronic sleeves because I know they were done just before I bought the car, and obviously they do say to change them every 100k, but this gearbox and transmission is absolutely perfect, runs perfect, don't have no issues. I'm just changing it for peace of mind, and it's due a service anyway, so we are going to be changing it. We're going to get the pan off. Once we get the oil drained, then we'll put a new pan on. We'll probably do the mechatronic sleeve as well at the top if I've got access to actually get to it. And then we're also gonna fill the gearbox fluid back up. Then what we'll do is go through the gears, let the car come up to temperature, and then refill it again once the car comes up to temperature. Can take a while to do it all, and obviously I'll break it down in segments so you guys can follow it very, very easily. So here is a 10mm Allen key bit we're gonna use, and I'm just gonna go ahead and drain the fluid out. So we're just gonna crack all this loose. Gonna drain it, just like that. And I have warmed up the engine already, so that's why it's coming out very thin, because I've already warmed up the transmission to get it to completely drain all out. And you can see that there. Dropping all the transmission fluid. Now this is one thing I always recommend, and that's to warm up the gearbox so the fluid comes very thin and it gets every bit out of the gearbox. Do not do this when cold. You want your transmission warmed up, so therefore you get all the fluid out. Now you can see right there, it is still draining. So I want to let it keep completely draining down. And while that's doing, we're just going to remove our fuel plug completely out. And what we'll do is we'll put the drain pan bolt back in, just so you know we don't have any fluid leaking when I move it, to obviously get to the TOPDON bolts and remove all them, to obviously drop the pan. So you can see there, that's now all retightened. So now you will still have oil in the transmission itself, so when you lower the pan, do be aware of that. It's not gonna all completely be emptied. So we're just gonna release all the bolts. And do remember, these ain't on tight. And if you can see, my impact gun's on like a low setting, so not strip them out. We're gonna have to remove this exhaust bracket as well from the gearbox mounting plate, just so we'll be able to get to all the bolts around here. So we just need an 8 and a 13. Then once that's moved out the way, you can then release all your other bolts. And this is why I left one in, guys, so I can grab it before it drops. Because the plan is now, while I've got my hand up there, took my drainer down, so any fluid can then just go into there, into my drainer from the transmission, and anything leaking can go into the drainer as well, so it doesn't go all over the floor. So now that's done, guys, if you can see here, this is the mechatronic system. Now, usually on these, the sleeves can go bad and you'd have to remove it. Now, what I am going to be doing is replacing the mechatronic sleeve, which is on the other side, and that's purely because obviously when that goes wrong, to get to it, you have to do all this again, because you have to pull the catch, which is over there on the right side, that white locking tab, to actually remove it. Now, for the sleeves itself, I know they're good, don't have no issues with my transmission, nothing at all. And I know they would have been replaced when this car had actually been serviced, because it's been serviced twice in its life. Now, the solenoids are all good as well, so if you ever had to get to your solenoids to redo the seals on the solenoids on the mechatronics, this is how you'd get to it. You'd release all the bolts that hold the mechatronics to the gearbox, take the mechatronics unit down, and just take out each solenoid with the Torx bolts and replace the seals. But usually these ZF6HP19 gearboxes are very, very reliable and don't go wrong. But if they do, this is how you'd actually get to it. What I'm gonna go ahead and do now is clean up all the area, because as you can see, it is all dirty all around here. So just gonna clean it all down, and then we'll come back on the video and I'll show you how to install the new pan and how to do the mechatronics plug and everything else. For right now, I just want to give it a good clean up before I do anything. I want to get all the debris off, obviously, because we've got the new pan going to go on, and I want it to seal properly, and it probably won't seal with all this crap, you know, that's on here. I want it to actually be a nice flat finish for when it joins and meets the gearbox itself, and it seals everything nice and tightly. So not many of you are wondering, you want to be able to see the pan, and here is the pan. Many of you guys know it's a plastic pan that BMW uses. You can see here there isn't no metal shavings or anything inside the gearbox, which is a good sign. They usually have metal things to catch anything that comes off the gearbox inside them, metal magnets. This one doesn't have anything inside it right now. Obviously I'll just keep draining all the oil so you guys can see. But the pan looks in good shape. Underneath, it seems okay as well, obviously. Is what it is. This has been changed at some point in its life. As I said to you, the history shows that it's been changed, and that's probably why my gearbox doesn't have any issues. But obviously we are doing it again on this car, and this is the pan that we're going to be replacing it with. We've got a male one. We will replace it with that one and pull it on the car. Okay guys, so we changed the mechatronic plug. As you can see, that's the old one. I already installed the new one. This one was in, well, not too good of a shape, but good shape. It wasn't leaking, wasn't causing any problems. I also replaced the plug connector as well, which is right here with it. Replaced all that, so everything's been replaced on the gearbox. Let me just tell you, anyone who tries to do this on a driveway, let me give you a lot of credit, because getting to that mechatronics plug must be extremely hard doing that on the floor. I mean, only true I've got this on the lift, and obviously because it takes the whole weight off the car, the gearbox drops down, you're able to get to the mechatronics plug a lot more easier than you would on the floor. But that is not an easy job, and I really do rate anyone who does this outside on the roadside. Yeah, so credit to you guys who actually do this on the floor. But now what we're gonna go ahead and do is we're gonna put the new pan back on, then we'll start filling up the transmission, then we'll put our fuel plug back on, start the car, let it come to temperature, cycle through the gears, let the fluid get around the whole torque converter, every gear, all the shift solenoids, all the clutch packs, and then we'll refill the gearbox once it comes up to temperature. So let's get it all back together. Remember, all the bolts need to be torqued up. 5 Newton meters is enough. They do not need to be super tight, so anyone who's planning to over tighten them, do not over tighten them, because all you'll do is cause it to be crushed. And bearing in mind it's a plastic pan, then what you end up having is oil leaking out of one side. So do bear that in mind when we put the new pan on. Now what we have right here is our new pan. This is a new mile one that we're going to be using, and I have lubricated the O-ring, so it's already good to go. We've got our new Torx bolts that come with the kit, which we're just gonna screw down by hand, just to help us guide them in. Just put one in there just to hold it in place. And we ain't gonna torque them down just yet. I'm just gonna tighten them all up here, just to hold it in place. Okay guys, so now we've done that, what I'm gonna go ahead and do now is get a torque wrench so I can torque all the bolts up to 5 Newton meters. Now do bear in mind, 5 Newton meters isn't a lot, so I'm just gonna torque these up. Okay guys, as you can see here, I've got 2 most usable transmission fuel pumps. Now, one of them you'll probably already know, which is this one, which is the most common one many of you guys will use for the floor and whatnot. And this is the one most garages use. Now, this one is a pneumatic one, and this one's got an extract and dispense. Now, this one actually pumps gearbox fluid into the gearbox very, very easily. And you can see here it's full of the MEL ATF 6+ fluid inside, ready to fill the gearbox. You've also got here a load of different adapters that actually link on to the gearbox. So you just see here, you'll see all different branded ones right here, which I'm gonna be choosing our correct one. So our correct one is gonna be up here, which is universal for BMW, so it's ATF102. That's the adapter we need. And then what we do with that is we'll just clip that onto here, just like that. And then we'll put this piece into our fuel plug. And then we've got an open and close to let fluid in and stop the fluid going at all. So down would allow the fluid to travel up, and then you've got the valve there that stops it traveling and can't go any further. Now, this one is not cheap by any means. This is a pneumatic one. The normal hand pump ones are cheap to buy. I've got the pneumatic because obviously I've got air compressors in here, and obviously it just makes my life a lot easier. I don't have to sit there and pump no fluid in. Just fill it up. You'll do it within 5 minutes. Fill the gearbox, the transmission up, put the fuel plug on. Then we'll start the car, let it come to temperature, and I'm gonna cycle through all the gears. So let's get on to filling the gearbox. Okay guys, so you're gonna see this going into the fuel. So just like that. Then what we're gonna do is open it. And then I'm gonna quickly press the fill to fill it up. So here it goes, guys. And you can see there, it's filling the gearbox. You can see the fluid leaking out. So we'll just fill it all the way up. Make sure, so you can see there. Ain't leaking out yet. So we'll just keep filling it. We're having an outburst of fluid, which we need to just take out. And you can see the oil fluid coming out. So now we need the fuel plug. Now what we're gonna have to do is start the car up. So I'm just gonna have to tighten this down. And we're gonna have to clean it up. We'll just do that. Just tighten this down. We don't wanna over tighten it just yet though, because we're gonna have to come back in here and then reopen it back up. So we'll just tighten that down. Just clean up all the fluid from here, even though we're gonna be putting more in. Okay guys, so now what we're gonna go ahead and do, we're gonna start the car up. I'm just gonna cycle through all the gears, then we're gonna come back under here and fill the transmission once it gets up to temperature. So I'll come back on the video once I've done that. You guys know the routine. Start the car up, let it come to temperature, cycle through all the gears. so the fluid gets around everywhere. So go reverse, neutral, drive, knock it over to manual, shift up 1, 2, 3. Do not let your foot off the brake whatsoever, so the wheels spin. Then just move it back again, go through the gears again, pull it in park, and then come back down here and wait for the car to come up to temperature. Very, very easy. You open the fuel plug again and just put extra fluid until it comes out again. And once it comes out, that's the job done. The transmission is refilled. Okay guys, so as you can hear, the engine is actually running. I'm now waiting for the gearbox to come up to temperature. Once it comes up to temperature, we're gonna open the fuel plug and put more fluid in until it comes out again. Once that happens, that is the gearbox service complete. I've already gone through all the gears, already cycled through them, held them in gear for like 1 to 2 seconds, left them in the gear, moved them up and shifted up through the manual override, all the way to 6th gear to make sure the fluid gets around everywhere it needs to inside the transmission. So once this comes at temperature, you'll see me filling the gearbox up for the last time, and that's the gearbox service complete. Okay guys, so now it's about time to refill the gearbox because it's up to temperature. It says 30 to 50 Celsius, which should be about now. So we'll just open the fuel plug up and start filling again. Just get that opened up. Now what we'll do is get our fluid, we'll just open up the valve. And it starts leaking out. We'll just leave that in there. We'll lock off the fluid level. We'll just cut that off now. You can see there, it's now leaking out. We'll put the fuel plug back on. And then that's the job done on servicing the transmission, because the fluid has come out, everything is full, there's no leaks from the transmission either. Now what we'll do is just tighten down the fuel plug, and we'll just tighten that up. Not over tight, because if I want to service it again, we don't want it to be over tight that you can't get it off. Most garages make this super, super tight when it don't have to be, when they service the transmission. But remember, it's got a seal there. It just has to be tight enough that it won't come undone, just about there. And that's now done. We've got no leaks from the transmission, and that is how you service the ZF6HP19 transmission. Okay guys, so there you have it. I've now shown you how to service your BMW ZF6HP19 gearbox. And obviously, many of you are going to say that I didn't change the mechatronic sleeves. That's purely because this car kept having a full service every 3 years. I don't know what the mileage was they were doing on this car, but I've got a stack of receipts for the transmission fluid change. I think it was every 40 to 50,000 miles in the book, and they did have the sleeves done previously, just before I actually bought it, along with the fluid and the new pan, and I believe that was at 110,000 miles. That's why I'm doing this now. Now obviously the next time I come around to doing this gearbox and changing the fluid, when it's time again, which is about 50,000 miles again, I will be changing the sleeves all underneath the mechatronics unit, which you have to drop the mechatronics unit to actually get to that. Obviously I did change the mechatronic plug sleeve. Many of you guys saw I actually changed that. The other one wasn't in very great shape. And that's because a lot of people try and avoid doing that because of how hard it is to get to them. If a person's got massive, massive hands, they seriously ain't getting to that piece right there where it actually connects in. But as I said to you, there is gonna come probably another car when I get an auto transmission that's gonna need the mechatronic sleeves doing. And when it actually does come, I will be doing a video on that, servicing the whole transmission. Obviously, I've still got my 130i, that one does need to be serviced, so that one's going to be coming up later on as well, bearing in mind that is a GM transmission, so I know many of you guys will look forward to seeing that as well, and how to service that, because this one's a ZF6HP, that was a GM 6 speed gearbox as well, so therefore we are going to be servicing that one later on in another video. Thank you very much for watching, guys, and I'm glad I've got the transmission fluid actually changed on this car. You saw how dirty and black the oil actually was inside the gearbox, and that's why you should actually change it. This one was way overdue, and I'm glad I put new fresh gearbox oil in the car, and now it will carry on driving like a dream. That's another job done on this black BMW E60, and I'm very happy to keep continuing on this car. Thank you very much for watching, guys. It's BMW Dr. Dean here, and goodbye.